Hey there, I'm Igor Smirnov, international grandmaster and chess coach, and I'm super excited to welcome you into this new course called Boleslavsky Pawn Structure. There are two main purposes for this course. The first one is to show you how to play this particular pawn structure that you can see right now on the chess screen, so that you'll be able to play it either from the white side or from black side. And the good thing about this pawn structure, which usually arises from various kinds of Sicilian defense positions or English opening, but it can really happen in many different common middle game positions. If I would just possibly take a few steps back, it would probably look like this. Now, obviously, this is still only an example position. It's not the real position that we're going to analyze from the game. There will be all the other chess pieces on the board. Right now, I'm just showing you the pawn structure that we're talking about. And in a position like this, at some point, white would probably move his knight to d5, and then this exchange will happen, and we will get the pawn structure that we're talking about. So once again, the first purpose of this course is to help you understand really deeply this pawn structure, as well as the common patterns, typical plans, maneuvers of your pieces, and exactly how you should be playing it. The good thing about this is that understanding this one pawn structure will help you play like 10 different opening variations perfectly, if not more, because just if you understand the common principles and ideas, you can apply them in various typical openings and middle game situations. That's the idea number one. Idea number two is that while analyzing this pawn structure, I will also be trying to share with you different positional and strategical ideas about chess, which are universal, so that you will overall improve your positional understanding of chess, which is one of the most important things in chess, because chess is a strategic game. And if you understand really well the planning aspect of it, how to play and what should you aim for, everything just becomes way easier. Now, let me also say a few words about this particular pawn structure and how it became so popular and why are we talking about it. Let me show you one possible way how we can get into the pawn structure we're talking about. For example, if we start with the Sicilian defense, the knight of variations, which is probably the most popular opening line of all, and in this position, after white plays his next move, let's say bishop e2 or some other move, black can push his pawn to e5. And in the past, like 100 years ago or so, this would be considered like a bad mistake for black, violating positional principles. But later on, people discovered that even though the advancement of a pawn like this has some obvious downsides, such as weakening this pawn on d6, which can be potentially attacked in the future by white, and also it creates this really great square for the white's pieces, which is a weakness of black, the square d5, which white can use for his pieces. And because of these two factors, the advancement of a pawn to e5 was considered a bad positional mistake for black. But later on, people realized that it has some pros as well. For example, first of all, this pawn provides black with additional control over the central squares. As we can see right now, it already pushed the white's knight away from the center on a more like flank position where it doesn't do much. Also, it provides obviously more space for the black's pieces, which he can use for different maneuvers. And finally, even though the d6 pawn is weak, it's not that easy to attack it because it's well protected by the black's bishop already, and therefore black has some ideas for an active counterplay. This variation was greatly popularized by Boleslavsky, one of the famous grandmasters of the past, who was at one point a serious contender for the World Championship title, and he was really close to playing a World Championship match against the world champion Botvinnik. He just basically lost one game, which costed him this opportunity. But anyway, for a number of years, he was one of the world top players, and he popularized this setup for black. Also, this common situation is called, sometimes this weakness is even called Boleslavsky hole. I'm not sure if he's happy that his legacy that people will remember him thanks to Boleslavsky hole, but anyway. And if moving forward from here, as we discussed, at one point in the future, white is very likely to jump with his knight on d5, and after this exchange, and white will retake with a pawn on d5. I mean, again, it's not that white is going to play right now, but just for the sake of illustrating the pawn structure, let me make this change in the position. So after black plays something and white plays knight to d5, at one point we'll get this pawn structure, which we're going to analyze in this opening. and in general in this course. It's also a very common situation because, as you can see here, it gives white with the pawn majority on the queen side, where black has pawn majority on the king side, meaning he has 4 pawns on the king side versus the white's 3 pawns. And black will likely try to expand there on the king side and try to start his attack there, so that we know first, if you're playing black, how you can do this effectively. If you're playing white, how you can stop opponent's attack like that. Similarly, we're gonna see how white can potentially use his pawn majority on the queen side and what are the effective ways to do that, as well as how to place your pieces effectively, how to use your rooks, how to trade off bad bishops, and a lot of great other stuff. Alright, without further ado, this is all for the intro part, and now let's dive deeper into different specific ideas for this pawn structure.